Okay, so today what I want to do in this episode of the Endless To Do app is I want to save our to-dos into our browser, into local storage. So when we reload the page or we come back on a later time, our to-dos that we filled in are still there. So what we are going to use for that is the browser's local storage. It's sort of a simple key value store where we can store arbitrary data for future use. So the first thing I will do is I will move these utils to a different file, and we'll add our local storage functionality there as well. So I'll just call it utils.js for now. And I'll just remove that here. And I'll just export those functions so we can import them in our app.js. So now we can say import create elements and create checkbox from utils. So our code seems to still be working, so that's great. Let's add the local storage. And it will take in a key and a value. And we'll just say local storage dot set item key value. I'll just wrap these functions now because it's possible that maybe later we'll add some versioning or something. Or we save it to another. I'll just call it save. Maybe later on we save it on the server or something. So I'll just wrap that. I'll just call it a saving for now. And then of course we have a get item key, like that. Okay, so we have those two functions. I think I might rename them because I think this is very fake. I'll just call it save to storage. I can always rename it later. Okay. So how does this work? What we can do is we will first go to our data service. And what I will do is I will add a new method called load. And it takes in a list of to-dos. And what we will do is very simple. We will say, actually we can't do that because this is a constant value. Actually, we can just say that to-dos dots is there a clear function? I'm not sure. We'll do it in a loop. We'll just say for to-do of to-dos. We'll just loop over all our to-dos and we'll just remove them. To-dos dot. Is there a, I'll just use splice, I guess. I'll use in because then we get the keys. I kind of forgot. Well, we'll check it out in a minute. Anyway, what we will do next is a second loop then for to-do of to-dos. I'm very sure it should be in. So in returns the keys, so the indexes of the array, and then of, if I'm not mistaken, returns the actual values. In this case, we want to just edit to-dos dot add your to-do. And lastly, our ID counter will be set to we'll do one more loop. No, actually I'm going to do it with reduce. To get the highest number in our to-dos list, we can use the reduce function. So what we do is to-dos.reduce, and it takes two parameters, A and B. And what we will do is we will check if A is bigger than B, we return A, else we return B. So imagine that we had an array 1, 3, 5, 8, 6, for example. I'll just take out 5 to make it a bit shorter. So imagine we have this array. What this will do is it will check is A will be 1 in this case and B will be 3. It will check is A bigger than B? No. Okay, so we take B, and then now B will become A. So that's 3. Now we have 3. The next number is 8. So is 3 bigger than 8? No. Okay, return 8. So our A number now is 8. And our B number will be 6. It will be the next one. So 8 and 6. Is 8 bigger than 6? Yes. Okay, so we return our 8. And this way we have a simple one-liner to get the biggest number inside of our list. And we can set our ID counter to that number, so we are sure that when we create a new ID, we do not have duplicate IDs, because we just add 1 to the highest to the ID counter to check if to create a new unique ID. So that's our load function. So first step, we remove all the to-dos. Next, we set the new to-dos that we want to load. And next is we update the ID counter to avoid duplicates. And this has to be a column, not a semicolon. So there we go. That's our load function. So now we can actually implement this. Another thing I want to do is, of course, here we want to save our to-dos. So we can use our newly created save to storage methods. So my IDE recognized it from the utils file, and as you can see, it will add it here. It will import it automatically. So save to storage, I'll just say the endless to do app to-dos. And we will save our to-dos. Although we don't use this yet, we can do the same for our update and our delete functions. So every time something changes in our to-do lists, we can save that. Now what we can do here is get our saved to-dos. I'm not exactly sure what I call this, so let's find out. Get to storage, that doesn't make sense. Make it get from storage. Get from storage. And we need our the endless to do app acronym to-dos like that. And then we can do actually we'll do that outside of our function. It's kind of weird because here we do the saving inside of our to-do logic, but we will do the loading outside. But in the end, I want to move this also to the outside using events, but that will be for a separate episode. So for now, we'll just, in our init, we can do document.add event listener when our doc contents. Oh, I made a little mistake here. Doc content loaded. So when the page is ready, we'll paste this here. We'll get our to-dos from local storage. And then what we can do is say does it know? Actually, I don't really think we need this event. But maybe we do. Oh, this is our data service. So we actually have to move this in here. It's been a while since I looked at this code, so I was a bit confused about where to add it. But here we create our data service. So we will, let's do it here just before we render load the to-dos if they are in storage. So if our saved to-dos exists, we can say data service dot load saved to-dos. Okay. Now we can test this. We can my new to-do, we can add this and we'll inspect. And there is a tab called application when you use the developer tools in Chrome or Edge or any Chromium based browser. And here you can see our storage. And you can see that I'm fairly sure that didn't work. Oh, no, it did actually. So what you can see is our to-dos are added, but the problem is they are added as text. And so JavaScript does a toString, and then you get this completely useless data. So one thing I forgot to do, and now you will already see why it was a good idea to make functions, is we will say that our value, we'll say let our const JSON is JSON.stringify. So we will convert our value to JSON and we will save the JSON. And then here we'll also retrieve the JSON, create our value object by parsing it to an object, and we will return our value like that. Okay, so now what we can see is in our local storage, our messages are actually being saved, so that's great. They are not being loaded, however. So that's because I made a little mistake. I did to-dos.add in our load function, and that of course should be push. And let's test it one more time. And we have probably another error. We don't have errors, but we also don't have to-dos. And we have duplicates. So we have two to-dos with an ID of 1. Okay, I'm not sure what happened, so I'll fix it and I'll get back in a minute. We have a working to-do app. Let me explain what I changed. So first, I removed some standards. I had two to-do items that were hard-coded, removed those. And then when we wrote the reduce function, I forgot to first map the IDs. So I was reducing the whole to-do, but to-do consists of an object. So an object being greater than another object doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So that's why that part wasn't working. And then another part I kind of messed up was with the new ID, I added the ++. So after the ID counter, which means that the assignment of the new ID happens before we add 1 to the ID counter. So it was always 0. Another thing is the now I check the todos.length. I check if there are any items before doing the reduce function, because it doesn't make sense to reduce an empty array. If it's empty, we just start the ID at 0. I also moved this line from our load function to our add function. So basically every time we add a to-do, we recalculate the ID counter, because it's the only place really where it's really important that we have the right one to check for doubles. To clean things up, I also changed this. So this before was todos.remove and todos.push, and now I used the built-in add and delete functions. And there was a little mistake in the delete function. It just said ID instead of todo.id, but that's fixed also. So now we can see we have no to-dos, but we can add a new to-do, add another to-do, and if we look here, we can see our to-do items are in here, and if we refresh the page, they're still there. Now, one thing that's not yet working is the state of the to-do. So when we check this, we do not apparently save this to storage, but that's for the next video.